Now, here's something many Kenyans don't know. It is legal to give up your child for adoption.
Ooh.
It is legal. So you don't have to abort a child. You don't have to abandon a child.
Pastor Janet, part 7, 8? Part 8. Welcome back. I hope you're loving the conversation so far. If you're catching us here, do yourself a favor, watch from the beginning, but if you need to watch from here, watch from here. We've been traveling on a journey, started from all the way from Eldoret, and now we are at the beginning of new life.
Yes.
So, the reason I stopped you on the last video is because I wanted this video, first of all, to stand out on its own, so that people can take this particular video and share it.
Okay.
Yes, for that reason, that's why I wanted us to have this as a standalone and get a holistic understanding around the conversation that we're about to have.
Okay.
Okay, so let's take this from the very beginning. What is New Life?
All right. So New Life is a charitable children's institution, abbreviation CCI, but to the normal person, they would say a children's home, but it's more than just a children's home.
Okay.
And New Life exists to do 3 things. The first, we rescue. Number 2, we care. And number 3, we place. So we rescue abandoned and very vulnerable babies. Most of them come to us. Our threshold is 6 months and below, but many times we get babies who are just a few hours, a few days old.
Wow.
And people will ask, where do you rescue them from? And I say it's like if you were going home today and you found a little baby abandoned outside your office or a place, where would you take them? You'd either take them to the nearest hospital, you'd either run to the police station, or a chief's office, or a children's department, anything government related. And so that's where we get the babies, because they are the ones who call us. You as an individual can't run to New Life and say, I have a baby. Because we don't know what the story is.
Yes.
Maybe you are trafficking the baby. So what we would say is, thank you, but please come in. And our medical team first will ensure that the baby is stable. Then together with you, as a good Samaritan, we have to go to the nearest police station. Every child who's rescued and is at New Life has an OB number. Because maybe they were not abandoned. Maybe somebody was trafficking a baby and panicked halfway, and there's a desperate mother looking. And hopefully, as we keep tracing, we may find the parents. So we rescue them. Many come to us. Some mothers you'd see went to a hospital, a maternity hospital, did the right thing, gave birth, and then somehow sneaked out. Okay, but the baby is safe. The baby was delivered well. Then we have those situations where you find somebody just carelessly threw the child like rubbish. If there's something I'm grateful for, the ban on plastic papers, I think there were a lot of children who were dumped in that. And I'm not being graphic, it was the reality. And we saved several. Because if you throw a baby, who would know what's in that bag? But then there are those that are horrific, where the intention was to kill. Where you'll find a baby with a cord around the neck, or children who've been thrown in pit latrines, children who've been thrown in alive. That's very horrific. And when I first came to New Life, it used to really break me. And I think there's so many people out there who want children. And then there are those who have children and are trying to kill. So we rescue those babies and bring them in. And of course, any new parent knows one of the highest costs in caring for a baby is medical. So when a baby comes in and they need, they've been thrown in a pit latrine.
So now we're moving into the care part.
So first is the rescue, yes. So when we rescue them, our commitment, number 2, is to care for them. And the basic principle, if this was my child, what would I do for them? So even if I'm not at New Life, and we have 4 homes, we have a home in Nairobi, here near Yaya, in Nakuru, in Nyeri, and in Kisumu.
What?
So
a lot of people think you just have one.
Yes.
The one here in Yaya.
Yes. So at any point, we have about, right now, 170 children in our homes. And I tell the team, even if you can't find me, simply ask, if this was my child, what would I do? Don't look at the bank account. Don't look at, if a baby needs to be in ICU, as a mother, you would run there and beg them. So just do for this child even what you would have done for your own.
Wow.
So we are unapologetic about our high standards of care. Many people come to our homes and they think, this is not a children's home. This is very luxurious. This is very, but I think if it was your child, you'd want to give the best, however simple. So that traditional or that stereotype of a children's home, you will not find in any of our homes. And we have an open door policy. You don't need to know me. You don't need to have an appointment. Monday to Sunday, you can go to any of our New Life homes. If you want, from 8 or 9 in the morning up till 5. Any day. Because we say the VIP are the babies. There's no need I'll put a show for you. Whether it's a high government official or they will find us as we are. Because the VIPs are the babies. Why pretend for 1 hour that they're all spruced up and then when you go, life goes back?
I get what you mean.
We don't do that.
Yep.
So, and that's why we have an open door policy. Just come, do life care for the children with us. So we are unapologetic about that. People will come and say, New Life, over-resourced, very rich, because we have beautiful homes. But those homes, it's a story that I'll share later, but they were all donated to us. And I tell people, if you have had a rich relative, an uncle, for example, and they wanted to bequeath you a property, and one was in a very high market, upmarket place, and another very low income place, what will you take? You'll take the one. Yeah. But we'll all be looking at you and saying, this guy is rich. And if they gave you on condition that you can't sell it, you can't rent it, use it, we'll all be looking at you and saying you are very rich. But we don't know if you have food. You can pay your bills. We're just seeing the external. That has been the story of New Life. Beautiful buildings that were given specifically for these children. So whether it is medical care, whether it is their spiritual, even physical care, we do that. 2 of our homes are also licensed as private medical centers. That is Nairobi and Kisumu. So we can do everything except ICU and surgeries. So if babies were very sick, let's say we had a rotavirus or pneumonia and they needed to be on oxygen, they needed to have all that we do. Now here's the beautiful thing about the medical part. All our doctors are volunteer doctors.
Nice.
We cannot afford to have pediatricians. We have nurses. Some of our doctors have served. New Life is turning 30 on June 8th this year.
And you'll give us a history.
Yes, 3 of our doctors have served the whole 30.
Wow.
Every week without fail. And it's pro bono. Sometimes at the end of the year, we may give a 10,000, 20 just to say thank you, but they serve wholeheartedly. Our Kisumu home is 23 years. The doctor who's there has been with us the whole way, from the very beginning. Nakuru is 18 years. Again, the doctor has been with us. He passed away recently, but then the person who took over from his practice, he sent Dr. Guer to us. So in Nairobi, we have Dr. Wangai, Paul Wangai, Dr. Mary Wangai, and Dr. Joy Mpatwa, who have served faithfully. In Kisumu, we have Dr. Shiroya, the whole 23, and then Dr. Guer moved in when Dr. Kalia passed away in Nakuru, and then in Nyeri, we have Dr. Kanyingi, who's been with us the whole 18 years.
Wow.
And then the other doctors who are on call, the other doctors who will come in maybe once a week, and it's just been an amazing, amazing space to see very qualified doctors giving higher standards of care without any charge, and seeing it as their part and contribution to humanity. So we give high standards of care, and we don't want our homes to feel like it's a pathetic children's home. Here's a sad thing. There are many homes in Kenya who maybe even receive more funds than us. But they will intentionally put on a face of poverty. Because if you come round and kids are in turn, that your heartstrings will be, these people are needy. And there are times people have told me, why is it we've gone to this home and given clothes, and it never ending, and it's like a hole. But I tell people, in this kind of work that we do, you curse yourself. If I start eating from what the children are supposed to, if I deny them,
wow,
it's your own curse. Nobody needs to check you. Even our staff, I tell them, I'm not checking you, I'm not doing body search. You want to steal? Steal.
It's yourself.
Oh, yeah. But if you want blessings, here. And I'd rather if you didn't have food, you didn't have sugar, instead of pinching kidogo or little, come to me and say, I don't have. It will be my joy, it will be our joy, the joy of the care teams, to put a dignified package and bring it without it being announced. And imagine the joy and dignity of doing that with your children, where you know this was an answer to prayer, or this was a gift. But imagine bringing stolen things to your children and eating it with your children. It's a curse on you. You're putting a curse on your own children. So we rescue, we care, but most important for us, we place children back in families. We do not want children to grow up in an institution. And from our inception in 1994, we've been able to take care of 2,572 children.
2,572?
Yes, and 85% of these children are in families today.
What? So you're talking about adoption?
Yes.
So I
So we do three things. When it comes to placement, we begin first with the biological family reintegration. There are times we'll be able to trace the biological family of a child. For example, a mother left a baby in the hospital. Maybe there was a phone number, maybe there was a contact, we may be able to trace. And because the best place for any child is first with their biological family. We may not get the mother, we may be able to get the grandmother, the aunties, and yes, we will take care of our child. Okay, so biological is the first. But then there are children who are abandoned in places where you'll never connect the dots back to their families. And so those using legal government processes, we place them in foster care and adoption. Now, before 2014, Kenya used to allow for inter-country adoption. So you'd have children who've been adopted in other countries, in Sweden, in Denmark, in all these countries, in the UK. But since 2014, Kenya put a stop, a moratorium, and later there's a stop on inter-country adoptions. So you must be a Kenyan citizen to adopt a Kenyan child.
Oh, so
yes.
Foreigners can't adopt Kenyans?
No, even if you are a resident in Kenya, you work in Kenya, but you are not a citizen, you can't, since 2014.
Why do you think that happened? Was that to curb trafficking?
Part of that was to curb trafficking. There's a lot of other issues, but that's what was placed at the forefront.
Okay.
But also for me, we've come from a place in Kenya where adoption was almost a taboo, a stigma issue. And I remember many years ago, even at the chapel, when we first talked about adoption, very few couples came and they didn't want that meeting it was almost it was like a small hidden thing. And I even knew people who would fake pregnancy, a baby bump. You just keep growing it with things, growing it, and it's a fake one.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a big issue for years. I know people who adopted children and very conveniently moved house before the baby came. So you go into a new neighborhood and in a day, a mom comes with a baby, or you come in with a baby, people assume you've always had this child. So there's been a lot of stigma, but there's something that has happened in the last, I would say 10 or so years that has been very significant. For us at New Life, we go out and speak about adoption. As a pastor, I have 4 sermons on adoption. And I speak about them because it's a biblical concept. Because we are adopted into God's family.
Yes.
Adoption is an African concept. For those of us who grew up in earlier, the nuclear family, me, my mom, my dad, and my siblings was not there at all. My own grandparents took in 3 guys. It was only when I was old I realized this one is Luya, this one is a different tribe. How is it they are my uncles? And they were not adopted legally in terms of how you go to court.
Yes.
But they came and lived in our family. They were brought up even till to date. The older one, we recognize him as the eldest, even though he's not my mother's biological sibling. It was a very, very African culture where people brought in others and raised them. And it was very rare to find, like now with my dad. Remember I said we had 4 siblings. So it's almost like he adopted them into a family and raised them all till they were adults. So we are very, very, one of our success indicators is how many children have we placed back in families. And adoption has a finality to it because it's enshrined in our law. Foster care is different from adoption in that foster care is where you take a child. It's a temporal placement.
It's a different institution, or within still the same
yes,
within a family.
Yes. So
for limited
right
time.
now, Kenya, we have a new Children Act that's about 2 years old, and Kenya is really pushing now for foster care, so that children are also not waiting long to be adopted, so that in the interim, instead of them being in an institution, they're in families.
I get it.
But there's still a lot of work that we need to do to ensure that there's capacity to follow up those children in families. Okay.
In foster care families.
Yes, in foster care families. So there's we're still waiting for the new regulations and all that. But
so let me understand
foster,
this. It is currently, I can't come to a children's home to take a child to temporarily stay with them.
You need to be vetted. Okay, because again, remember you can't go to a car shop and just buy a car today. Walk in and, you'd have thought through it. There's some thought.
Yeah.
You can't just go buy land, although I know some Kenyans just hear there's land and they buy it, they don't know where it is. This is a human being, so you can't just go in and say, I want this one, and move out with the child. There has to be prior preparation. We need to know who you are. So currently, with the foster care, it's very similar to adoption. The only thing is you never go to court for the final adoption orders. So whether you are a foster parent or you want to adopt a child, you first need to be vetted. For a foster, you'd come to us and say, I would like to be a foster parent. There's a new process through the government children's offices where you'll sign some documents, then they will vet you, and if you are vetted to be a foster parent, then you'd be able to be placed with a child, let's say from New Life in any other home.
Yeah. And New Life will do this vetting?
No. Right now, it's supposed to be the children's department that does that.
I get that.
But again, we are working, because we're in the new beginning stages, we're also working with the parents, where sometimes we'll vet them and tell them this is a process, and now move them to the children's department.
Okay.
So once you are vetted as a foster parent, you stay with that child. There's short-term foster. Sometimes there's an emergency foster where we may need to place a child with your family for a couple of hours. Okay? Let's say we've had cases where a mother was on her way somewhere and there was an accident. And the mother is very sick. We don't know where the family is. And the baby doesn't need to be in Kenyatta Hospital or somewhere for that whole duration. So we put up the baby in a safe place as we are trying to trace the family. Or a mother came all the way from Kericho, referred to Kenyatta Hospital for an older child, and then she's told, you can't be in the ward with 2 children. So instead of that child also going into a children's home where you can place them temporarily, even in a foster situation, while the mother is recuperating, or the brother, and then it allows the child also to have meaningful interactions back and forth with the parents. But the long-term foster is for a year, where if you again say, yes, I want to foster this child again, you renew that for a second year. But then when you get into the 3rd year, the new law then is saying you should be thinking about adoption by now, so that you are able to now sign up as an adoptive foster. Yes, there's always been a limit. So it's a 2-year, but by the 3rd year, you are transitioning into adoption. Now, before this new act, and still happening as we are waiting for the regulations, if you want to adopt a child, we always say the first place is not that children's home. Don't come to a home like ours. They are beautiful children. By the way you meet the babies, you know, people assume the baby was abandoned because maybe they are scarred, maybe there's a beautiful children, and you look and you think there must have been a story here. There's something went bad, there's a story. And
what kind of stories have you heard, just to give context?
The times some ladies, when we've tracked them and you ask, they say, you know, the guy bailed out on her and she didn't have any source of income and she didn't want the baby to suffer, and so she decided to release the child. There are other situations where maybe it's a young girl and she didn't want her parents to know. So maybe she stayed out of home for a long time, delivered the baby and sneaked out of hospital, so nobody is the wiser. And they may not have do it in the town they live in. Maybe they went from Nairobi, went to stay with a parent or in college in Meru. By the time the parents find out, things really have moved on. So there are different stories.
I get it.
Very rare. I'm sure there are those, not every child. Maybe there's a rape issue and maybe you just do not want. Now here's something many Kenyans don't know. It is legal to give up your child for adoption.
Ooh.
It is legal. So you don't have to abort a child. You don't have to abandon a child. When the police catch up with you after you've abandoned, it's a criminal case. But it is legal to give up a child. And it's a very straightforward process where many people will call a home like us, but we are not the first step. The adoption agencies are the first step. So we would then refer you to a registered adoption agency, and there are counselors there, because again they want to know, why do you want to give up the baby? Maybe it was a short-term crisis that can be solved, but if it's not, then when the baby is born, the agency will be there to receive the baby, and then you sign an initial consent saying, I don't want this child. The child is brought to a home like ours, and you go home, and you are given 6 weeks or so to think about that decision. And there are people also working with you from the agency. If you don't want that baby completely, when you sign the final consent, then that baby can now be placed for adoption, but after several months of, again, following some due paperwork. So it is legal, but many people don't know that. We have had situations where a couple, maybe something went wrong, and it's just a push and pull, and somebody decided, I don't want this child. So a lot of things happen, but many times when we've traced the biological family, you'll find there's a grandma, there's somebody who will say, yes, I want this child. There may be a few who maybe it was somebody with a mental illness, but not all.
Yeah.
But again, even those, if you trace the families, you may find something just went wrong. Maybe it was postnatal depression. Yep. Just life happens. Before I used to be very angry, very judgmental, but nowadays I think I don't know what was going on. I remember we rescued.
Is New Life involved in the tracking? Are you the ones who do this?
Yes, we would do that.
So
it's
this
part
is not
of
outsourced. This is New Life.
No, it's part of what we do.
Okay.
And we also work with the police. We also work with government, the chiefs, the WHO.
Okay.
And we're able to trace. But there are times you can't trace at all.
Yeah.
Or there are times you trace back and you find the family doesn't want. There are some few cases, and not usually in Nairobi, but most of some up countries where maybe it was a child born out of incest. And the family extended, nobody wants that child at all. But it's a precious child. And again, we need to be able to find a family for that child, regardless of how they were brought into the earth. So that's what we do. We rescue the babies, we care for them, and we place them. Now, since inception, out of those 2,572 babies and counting, there's some few children who were never placed for adoption and grew up at New Life. And we have about 13 boys And it's an amazing story for each one.
Have these guys hit 18 years old now?
Oh yeah, we have 23 and bigger guys than you, taller than you. But for us, we felt these become our children. It was never the intention for them to grow up there. And so we've done everything we can for them to grow up within like a family setting.
Yes.
And the government says when they're 18, they transition out. They are no longer children, but then which family in Kenya kicks out their children at 18? So for us at New Life, we don't. What we've done is move them into a separate space and then help them to become independent. We are committed to ensuring they go through school, like any child. Again, if this was my child, what would I do? So we have we have 13 boys and we have 16 girls who've grown up in our home. And then in
Have any
Kisumu,
transitioned out on their own?
they're now in that process.
Oh.
And then in Kisumu, we have a unit for children with special needs.
Oh, okay.
And again, those children, some of it very severe, cerebral palsy, autism, and the rest. And you can see why people didn't take these children, because it's a very, very expensive medical condition. We have to have physiotherapists on staff in Kisumu. We have to have them on meds for seizures, because they're very dilapidating conditions, medical conditions. And some of our children who are in that unit, even doctors didn't think they would grow up to be 15. But our oldest guy just turned 19 now. He doesn't talk. He's never talked. He can't bathe, feed himself. They're on diapers 24-hour care. A lot of care going on, because cerebral palsy can be very hard the older the child gets. So the other ones who were able to go to school and go to regular schools, we've been able to transition several of them to college. And what we did, I thank God for giving us this idea. Of course, we benchmarked with several. We had never envisioned New Life having older children. And so we benchmarked with several organizations to see the good, the bad, the ugly, the good, okay? And we're able to pick things. And we decided we're not going to, we're not kicking those children out at 18. But we'll commit to work with them until they stand independent in life. So we began by having them within the compound, but in the smaller rooms. So any compound that had a servant's quarter, we converted that into their units. We gave them, we were now not cooking for them. We put them in teams. This is your rations for the week. Whether you cook, whether you don't.
It's on you.
It's on you. Whether you wash your room, but don't come where the other younger ones are. Us will be cooking meals. So kind of helping them to gain that. And then when they went to high school, very intentionally, we wanted them to be in boarding schools so that they move out of the institution, begin to learn how to do things on their own, be a bit street smart and all. And so I'm a proud mother of many. And the guy who's ahead of our pack just finished his undergrad, his bachelor's degree.
Wow.
2 weeks ago at JKUAT. So I'm really thrilled. This January we had 9 of them joining, 8. The 9th one just joining college at different parts. We have a girl doing a law degree at Daystar. We have a boy in ZTech University, Cooperative College, and then they're across Nyeri Polytechnic, Nyandarua Polytechnic, and then depending on your grades, there are some doing degree courses, some diploma, and a few doing certificates. But even those with certs and diplomas, we say, if you work hard and we can see you are very serious about this, we will do our best to raise funds to take you all the way until you are done with your degree. But there are some, of course, academically who may not, so they'll gain that skill, whether it's carpentry, hairdressing. So I'm really thrilled to have that set doing well. And just came back for a reunion with them, I think a week ago. We were in Kisumu. And it's always amazing to just see these guys are not children anymore. These are men.
Let me ask you this question.
Yes.
What's the history of New Life?
Yes.
And then all the way until the introduction of you?
Mm-hmm.